Hello, welcome to UAP Society. I'm Chris Lehto. I'm a retired F-16 pilot turned UAP investigator, among other things. So thanks for being here. This was originally scheduled with Michael Schratt. Hopefully he shows up. He's investigated over 50,000 UFO cases. He's a private pilot and aviation historian. So I was really looking forward to chatting with him. Not sure what happened. Hopefully everything is okay. We'll just do a live question and answer session until he shows up. So yeah, hopefully he's all right. So anyway, well, I'd like to give a short update what I've been up to this week. Basically, I went to the 15th European Space Conference. It's Securing the Future of Europe in Space. This was in Brussels, and I was invited because I write articles for the Portugal News. So I live in Portugal, actually, for 2.5 years now. I moved here after I retired with my family, and we are happy here and write for the local paper, which is now expanding online. That's called the Portugal News. And what's nice about it is it's positive oriented news instead of negative. And yeah, I write a UFO investigation column for them. Been doing that for over a year now. And they invited me, this space conference invited me to attend as a journalist. I was kind of surprised, actually, especially when I got there and no one even knew what the word UAP meant. I mean, they were shocked, and I'll have to find a short that basically I made. But let's look through basically who was there. These are all the people, institutional invited speakers. So this was in Brussels, 24 to 25 January. I flew there. I was able to bring my wife. She loves space. That's probably actually one of the main reasons we went, is because I had to pay my own way. But getting in was free on a press pass. Although I do have to write the articles. Interesting articles to write, though. So this was who was there. I didn't talk to these guys. Just run it here. The basic takeaway was very interesting, was in Ukraine. Basically, right before the invasion of Ukraine, the Russians did a simple denial of service attack, I guess, against Europe, and all of their satellites. It affected their system in a very negative way. I think knocked down all their eyes and ears, if you will. And so it was interesting. They called it the 9/11 moment for Europe. So anyway, they were going with kind of a fear-based narrative, and when I wanted to bring up UAPs, the idea was, could it be presented as a collaborative science, positive-based narrative? And no one wanted to hear that, actually. They did not want to hear it. I talked to this guy, Ricardo Conde, and he's the Portuguese Space Agency lead. I write for the Portugal News. And interesting, they are starting in the Azores. The Azores is the islands out in the Atlantic, is owned by Portugal, and there's no more spaceport actually in Europe because UK left Europe, right? So I guess they had the spaceport, and Spain is having political issues with Morocco, so they can't build a spaceport where I guess they could physically, right? Because the Earth is spinning east 1,000 miles an hour. That's how fast it's spinning. So it's much easier to launch A from the equator and B going east, and you want to launch over water, so you need basically east-facing ocean. Spain, I guess, can't do it because of the political issues, but Portugal has offered up the Azores as their island chain. So this guy, I interviewed him. That was quite interesting as well. So let's see. Welcome everybody who's here. We have 26 people. How are you guys doing? Yeah, I think Brazil is quite different. A wizard is never late. Hello to Christian, Andres. Hello. Thanks for being here, everybody. Oh, were you guys even seeing that? I hope you were. Let's see. Hi, Jordy. What questions you guys have? You're here. We're waiting for the guest. Hopefully he shows up. I really want to talk to him, actually. He said he has a presentation. So unfortunate. I don't know if we messed it up. Must be something we're doing. But you guys who are here early, you get on video. There you go. Smooth operator, greetings. Happy Friday, everybody. Man, I flew to Belgium. I'm still just so out of it. Woke up at 3:30 coming back. It was freezing. Food was amazing. Yeah, I hadn't really spent much time in Brussels ever. Super friendly people. I talked with a Sky 360 developer, Lionel Lamar, and it was awesome. He invited me to his house. We went there, saw all the hardware. There was this billionaire who donated $15,000 to Sky 360, and Richard Hoff bought all these awesome cameras. So better camera systems, sent it out to all the developers, which is a great motivating factor for these guys who basically work just from their home. You know, they're not getting paid. So showing all this equipment showing up has motivated them. And Lionel was showing me the actual software they have, and it's working. So it's object tracking. Like they have the AI system looks good. It was identifying the bird. It was identifying a plane. It gives you a probability. So I recorded it. I'll make a video hopefully next week. Boom. Welcome, Tim Billy. Will you be touching the Mosul Ball event? Yes, definitely. I'm just trying to catch up with what I have. I had an amazing interview when I was in Brussels, actually in the hotel room with Eric Delgado, and he is the guy who made that video of the orb. Well, originally I thought he was so excited, you know, and he's like cussing. I don't know. I thought he was like a Cessna pilot or something. I didn't even look really, but now, you know, it's an amazing video. And he took 4 videos, you know, 6 minutes. He has in his co-pilot who saw it to begin with was a F-15 pilot for 20 years. And that guy retired, and he saw this thing. He thought it was a shooting star. And you can hear him, or basically according to witness testimony, he says, is that a shooting? And he pauses because the thing like stopped right next to their plane and then flies next to them for 25 minutes. I mean, that is just insane. And so I got to talk with him. We had a great interview. He's super nice guy. Yeah, it was awesome. And he was pumped. He was just so pumped to get a video. And it is a really good video. And he took 9 photos, 9 still photos. So I've been working just, you know, I went to that European Space Conference and now working on that, getting that video edited as best I can. You know, I had to go over it again just to make it better because, yeah, it's just really good information. Okay, cool. Greetings from Jerusalem. Any thoughts on the Hypocenter 101 channel on sightings this week from airline pilots? Again, I'm just at max speed already. And so I just saw it. I didn't have time to watch it. I think it's very interesting. But I'm trying to just find my own evidence, I guess, at this point. And so that's why through Eric Delgado. And it seems like there's not that many airline pilots willing to speak out. So the more that we can get out there that are comfortable with it. And Eric said he had no negative issues, right? There was nothing bad that happened. And he was able to add this, you know, his video to like the evidence. And he talked to MUFON. He talked about how he was able to chat with the MUFON reps, and they were really good investigators. Bob Allen, I think he said. And so he goes through that whole process. It was awesome. So I think the more, the better. Yeah, that's what I think. I think it's great. Marfa Lights, that's in Texas, right? I was looking at Stephenville UFO. I collected a bunch of data on that. Very interesting case, you know, from I think 2008 in Texas, you know, in Crawford near George Bush's ranch. And that was in January of 2008. So I think he could have been there like before the changeover with Obama. So maybe he was there, and there's pretty amazing testimony. This guy, Ricky, he's talking about, he's just a hunter, you know, straight Texas, you know, rural boy. And he talks about, he's out hunting and he looks up and he sees this giant triangular craft, and he talks through it. Like, you know, he never thought that would be possible. It's quite interesting. So I've looked into that. I haven't looked into Marfa Lights, but I'm guessing that's in the same area. Baptiste Friscourt on Explorer Lab made a live last Tuesday on Mosul Ball. Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'm a fan of Baptiste. I look at his stuff. We work together. So yeah, I'll try and catch up on it. Thanks for that. Have you ever looked into the Brazil Colares UFO flap? UFO terrorized a town for 18 months. Tons of military documentation. Red Panda Koala has an amazing documentary on it. I'd never heard of it. No, I haven't either. Actually, I take that back. I have heard the name. But again, I haven't looked into it. Red Panda Koala, though. Yeah, I like that. His videos are awesome. I'll check it out. I know a video you and other pilots should see how it knew the cap point. It's like freaking magic. The cap point. Was it exactly on the cap point? I want to see that because, a cap is actually usually 10 miles, at least 10 or 15 miles on a leg. And then it takes around, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles is what we give with wind. So 5 miles. So it's really like 10 nautical miles this way, and it's 5 nautical miles that way. So it's like 50 square miles of area. So the cap point is normally one little point here exactly, and then you're going to fly this exact route. So was the tech like right on that point, like right there, or is he just somewhere near there and they just call out, hey, he's near the cap point? I guess that'd be my question. Hypocenter Wisconsin Lights was a good breakdown. They're doing some good work over there. Yeah, Ben Hansen, I think he's motivated. He was an FBI investigator, so yeah, I think it's great. And he's not afraid to put stuff out there. I know he's getting hammered because the Starlink satellites, or the other lights, some light show, basically look like lasers, just like a light show. But I'm glad to see he's still putting it out there. I don't know, Paola. Are there massive sightings in Guatemala? I guess it seems like there's a lot of sightings. There's a lot more ovnis in the Latin world. And even though I lived in Spain for 3 years and live in Portugal for 2.5 years, my Spanish and Portuguese is not very good, so I can understand it reasonably. But it would be great to tap into them. I'm sure they know a lot. I'm curious if experienced people in this subject believe religious dogma, financial constraints, controls, or simple limits of human perception are responsible for the apparent safety negligence. I don't know the safety negligence. Okay, what about the Turkey UFO? Still planning to investigate? Yes, definitely. So we're planning the trip now this summer. It's going to be awesome. We're going to do a family trip, Lehto family road trip. I have 3 kids, age 13 through 8. And my son he's the 8-year-old. He was actually born in Ankara, where I was a Turkish exchange pilot. And so, he wanted to see where he was born. Or, I was like, hey, do you want to see where he was born? And, his eyes lit up. So we're going to go there. And hopefully we'll do also Istanbul. And I want to go to Göbekli Tepe. I hate to say that on air, but man, it would be so awesome. We went there before kind of by accident. Amazing trip. So hopefully that happens. Awesome, Todd. Yeah, so you've already seen it. Great. You must be a patron. Thanks. And yeah, so that'll be up tonight, 11. And I spent a lot of time editing. Thanks to your guys' feedback. I used AI, so I even will tell you guys about that. It's called Project Shasta, Adobe Podcast. You can upload an MP3, and it's not 100% perfect, but it's like 98% perfect. And it just cleaned up the audio, saved me so much time. Man, AI is just taking over. This is kind of my idea as well, Jake. The cap point is definitely a bizarre data point, but it could be looked at 2 ways. I'm interested as well. Turkey's just an amazing place. Göbekli Tepe is, over 10,000 years old, could go to 10,000 BC. It could be the driest event that Graham Hancock talks about. It'll be fun too. Turkey is just an amazing country. The people are unreasonably welcoming and friendly. And I speak Turkish, and so I can just talk to them, and they're very, very friendly. Amazingly, the food's delicious, and yeah, I'm really excited that we get to go back see old friends. All right. Let's see, safety regarding Graves, Fravor, commercial sightings. I see. Yeah, actually, now that you mention it, Jay, in the interview with Eric, the first half of the interview, actually, I asked, had he ever seen any UAPs? And he said, well, come to think of it, there was one time when he was flying, he had a weird event in the Bermuda Triangle. They were just at the north end of the Bermuda Triangle, and the sun was on the left side, right, of the cockpit. So You could see the sun through the clouds. Basically, it was a light cloud layer. They could see the sun, and he said that the gyroscope started spinning. The whiskey compass, so separate systems. The whiskey compass and the J4 and N1 were spinning. The laser gyros weren't affected. And at that same time, there was a mirror image on the other side of the cockpit. So they saw the sun over here. So they saw two suns 90 degrees out in some weird prism effect. And basically, Eric said he reached down to, decouple the autopilot, or something, because the compasses are spinning. And the navigator was like, no, don't do that. It's a magnetic anomaly. We're in the Bermuda Triangle. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So NARCAP, apparently they have, if you don't know what that is, it's the National Civilian Recognition. Here, let me just go to it. Where pilots can turn in reports. Sorry, guys. There we go. So this is NARCAP, right? National Aviation Reporting Center on Anomalous Phenomena. And this has been around for a while. Okay, started run by Ted Rowe now. And basically, they will take reports. And according to them, orb effects, if there's orbs there in orb events, there's some large percentage. It was over 50%, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look at the report. They have all the data on there. You can see it on their website. And basically, in those events, the navigation systems, or at least avionics systems, were affected. So electronic systems, magnetic systems. So in this case, from Eric Delgado, it was a magnetic anomaly in the Bermuda Triangle. And then it went away after 3 minutes. And he said the compasses went back to normal and the optical illusion went away. And so he talked to MUFON. He was quite impressed with MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. And he said their investigators were actually very good. And they asked all the right questions, were very, very, good to work with. So he enjoyed it, and he encouraged other pilots to come out. So that'll be on my channel, Lehto Files, tonight. I haven't looked at MUFON. With the live. Yeah, hopefully I will stream from there. That would be cool. Let's see. We will never get disclosure from government regarding ETs. The UFOs like to hover their distance at the same time. They want us to know they are around. I agree. I wonder if there's any black box data from downed crash aircraft that was never reviewed that should have been. I'm sure there has been. And the cap point. Orbs have an EMF or something. I felt it myself. It was a huge white light. It kind of had a diamond shape, but that's likely just light. It chased my mother and I for about 20 minutes. Wow, thanks for sharing. Yeah, Eric said this orb appeared and then shined a lighthouse beam of light, basically like a spotlight, through the plane. It's interesting. Any other effects from that mud hole? Let's see. Okay. Do you agree? This is from Paola. Do you agree with Lou Elizondo that disclosure already happened? No. I mean, maybe behind closed doors in classified settings, where he can see him handing out all the evidence and the treaties and the agreements, the meeting notes, the craft. Yeah. Any knowledge about not being here, or any knowledge of the universe? So yeah, I'd say definitely not. That's awesome, Chris. We are living vicariously through you. Okay. I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, it's tough sharing. It's scary to share. Show people how you live, what you really do, which I saw Graves' interview with Gary Nolan. It's quite interesting. Actually, I'm halfway through it, and I still need to finish it again, traveling. But I talked with Gary Nolan on Monday, and that'll be on this channel as well. So check that out. So Gary Nolan, we're going to double stream it on this channel and on Lehto Files. So you can be on either one, and we'll take questions at the end. We'll see how much time we have. Let's see. So Jay, seen a red dimly lit glowing orb about the size of a beach ball one night a few years ago. It literally passed over my head about 50 feet high. I got a good look at it, although it was hard to see. Seems like, yeah. So the Mosul orb, where's the best information to get it? I saw John Greenwald. He released some info on it. Yes, and he spelled his name right. Has 2 R's. Gary spells it with 2 R's. Let me show you guys this short I made at this conference. It was so, man, I was a fish out of water at this conference. UAPs, you know, anyone I mentioned the word UAP to, I was like, yeah, I'm a journalist with the Portugal News. I investigate UAPs. And they would just be like, that's nice. And they would literally just walk away. It was so awesome. Sorry, I have to switch. Let's see. I've shot video of at least 10 orbs here in Salt Lake City, Utah. Really? That's amazing. Can you put it up? I would, tell people to put it up on YouTube. It's free. You can throw up your videos. I think you can remain anonymous as well. But that's great to have other people look at them. You can also come to UAP Society Discord. Let's see. Where is the 4-second video of the Mosul UAP? I don't know. I didn't know there was a video. Yeah, Willie, if you can make a YouTube channel, you just have to upload a video and make it public. That's it. There's a little button up next to on YouTube where you create. I'm afraid to look at my own channel. I remember Martin Willis. He has an amazing channel as well on his live shows. And he had Berkshire UFO. He went and investigated it. He has an amazing show on it where he's talking to these people who remember seeing each other on a craft, but they didn't know each other at the time, and they didn't know each other through their lives. They just saw each other on TV and brought these people together. So on Berkshire UFO, yeah. So basically, that one is a large mass sighting, and it was presenting that information. So putting that information out in the open had brought other people's minds to it, and they also thought back. And there was a police officer. He was a detective, actually retired detective, who remembers back seeing this craft. And so when the people talked about it on TV, it brought his memory back, and he said, I saw the same craft, and they all drew it, and it was all basically the same craft. So quite interesting. All right, sorry guys. So we've been making shorts. I've been making shorts.
I put a question in.
Can get this to work. Yeah, so I'm at the conference here. It's a large room. It's basically kind of like their space room. Amazing giant room. And there's a few, maybe 400 or 500 people there. And this is the NASA Europe rep. And I tried to ask this question the day before to a different panel, to that panel with Richard Cohn I was showing you. And this is the question I entered. I thought it was very vanilla, like as vanilla as I can make it. NASA recently announced they're investigating unidentified anomalous phenomena. What steps, if any, are being done in Europe? And they had this little app. And so I wrote it in and I put in that question. And there was this researcher, this guy who was choosing the questions because they wouldn't put my question up there. They had 3 other questions. And so I looked around and I saw that guy in a tablet, and he was like writing it. And I asked him, and he said, no, we're not going to put that on the screen. I was like, you're going to put it on the screen? Why not? And they wouldn't. So this is the next day. And again, we get to the end of the conference, and he actually gave a great speech. This is Michael Kopf. He is not a speech necessarily, but it was interesting responses. And he's the NASA rep in Europe. And he basically talked about collaboration, the Artemis Accords, basically who will be the astronauts that go to the moon, who actually get to land on the moon. And there's an astronaut in this panel here, Samantha Cristoforati, and she gave, an amazing speech earlier as well. So it actually was a good conference. It was just, they didn't want any actual questions. That was my impression. They just wanted us to report them telling stuff. And so I just asked this question, and it's ridiculous. Hopefully you can hear it.
Maybe you can say, if you say your question, then we can take it.
So NASA has recently said that they are investigating unidentified anomalous phenomena. I'm Chris Lehto from the Portugal News. And the question is unidentified anomalous phenomena being looked at in Europe? Is anything being done? Do you guys even know what it means?
So who would be able to answer such questions? That is then.
I don't know. Mr. Ruskin, finish.
I don't have any information about international cooperation on that. I can only answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I put a question in. Yeah. So you can see that's the Canada rep. He was cool. I talked to him after. He said he didn't want to, speak up. He's not in Europe, and he wasn't a NASA rep, so he had heard of UAPs. So I don't know what he would have said if anything's really being done. Sounded like nothing's really being done or coordinated. This is the Indian rep, and he had talked about Indians' aspirations. They're sending quite a few satellites up and rockets, etc. And he said he hadn't heard about the NASA investigation at all, and so he was kind of interested. I asked if there's any UFO or UAP studies going on in India, and he said no, not with any serious scientific effort. So that's not happening. And this is the NASA rep that I already said. This was the same presenter from the day previous as well. So that's why I think it's the same guy. So this guy, he's the ESA rep. He's the director of industry in the ESA. Let me see if I can get it back there. I talked to him after, and he kind of listened to me, and I said he gave a good speech, about scientific collaboration in space, right? They want scientific collaboration in space. So I talked to him after, and I said, what about UAP investigation, scientific investigation of the unknown? The public is interested in it. Why not look at that as an avenue of collaboration? And he just didn't even really want to consider it. I think it's just, there's just like a wall that they didn't want to consider it. They're almost going with the threat narrative, that basically Europe will be left behind if they don't innovate and secure themselves against, Russia, essentially. They will be left behind. They're fourth now, which is quite large. So they want to develop their own industry. But it looks like you could also, what I think is we could consider UAPs as a bipartisan collaborative way to scientifically study the phenomenon, instead of looking at space as a battleground, which is what it's kind of becoming, right? Because the Chinese now have an operational space station. Sorry, Michael just showed up, so kind of threw me for a loop. But the ISS actually for China is operational, and they have invited European nations to attend, so they could go and attend. It's quite interesting. And so China has a very thriving space operation going, and then SpaceX is doing amazingly well with their reusable rockets they've had for over a decade. And here they showed a video at the space conference. They showed a video of reusable rockets being planned. They're not even flying them right now. SpaceX has been flying them for over 10 years. So hopefully this space port in the Azores, hopefully that goes through. It'd be great. Portugal is an amazing country, and I think that would be great if they could make that happen and have a space industry. They're very forward thinking. I will have to say that Portuguese are very globally minded. They're big thinkers. I could see it happening. I hope they can go through with it. Okay, well, excellent. Thank you, Michael, for being here. Let me go through. I'm sure it was our fault. Sorry about that, mate. But Michael Schratt, okay, he is backstage. Bring it up here. Again. He's a private pilot, aviation historian who has been investigating UFO encounters for over 25 years. Michael Schratt so far has reviewed over 50,000 cases. He's appeared on multiple media platforms, including Coast to Coast AM, History Channel, Paranormal Matrix, UFO Hunters, and Fade to Black. He's also been a guest speaker at multiple UFO conferences, including Phoenix MUFON, Orange County MUFON, International UFO Conference, MUFON Symposium, and UFO Con. So glad he could make it. Thank you so much for being on here, Michael. Welcome to the show.
Good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Sorry about that, mate, but
all good.
Glad you're here.
All good. Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's Friday. I was just talking about. I went to the European Space Conference and just flew back, so I'm tired actually, but I'm excited to chat with you. I saw some of your videos. You have looked at an amazing amount of historical cases, which is really amazing. I'm happy to see you're a private pilot. So you have the pilot perspective, which I think would be fun to chat about. Mm-hmm. And really all this retrievals. It seems like I'm being asked a lot about material retrievals. I've talked to people who supposedly have seen where crashes, have landed, or heard anecdotally that a crash landed, 50 years ago. No one's really investigated it. So it's just great to chat about that in general. So welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good. So do I have the ability to share my screen?
You do. Yep. So go share screen and I will give you the chance.
All right. Let's see here. Let's see. Let's see how present. Let's see, share screen. Okay.
That's it. If you want to share with audio, you need to click the little button down on the bottom left of the screen when it comes up.
Okay. Share system audio. Okay. Share. Okay.
That worked.
So do you see this?
I do.
You do. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Excellent.
Good. All right. Excellent. Let's go here. Okay. So just gonna go over a couple of quick things here. I think we got a little bit of a window of time that we can review some of these crash retrieval cases. I thought I'd just rip through a couple of these, and I always like to start here because UFO crash retrievals really are the ultimate holy grail, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, they have the bodies, they have the debris, and they have the craft itself. So it's the crash retrievals that really are required to move this field forward. I mean, we don't need any more CE1 or CE2 cases. What we need is the physical evidence to move this field forward. And the crash retrievals have the potential of doing that. A couple of quick announcements before we get into the slides here. The content of each case highlighted in this presentation has remained intact per the description of the original source. The identity of first-hand sources will be protected per Leonard Stringfield's original agreement with his military contacts. Number three, the visual aids used in this presentation are computer-generated forensic composite illustrations and sketches which originated from the specific details provided by Leonard's sources. Source material for this presentation is as follows. So here, this is the caliber of witnesses that we'll be looking at here. 3-star U.S. Air Force generals, U.S. Air Force fighter pilots, astronauts, commercial pilots, air traffic controllers, neurosurgeons, pathologists, theoretical physicists and mathematicians, U.S. Army officers, U.S. Navy officers, military police, high-level Pentagon officials, top military brass, scientists and engineers who worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and other government facilities. We'll do a couple of quotes here really quickly. Number one, since World War II, 50% of all documents created by the United States government have been classified top secret. Therefore, that means that we have essentially lost 50% of our national history. I thought that was interesting. Number two, UFO crash retrievals can't be real because if they were, I would have read about them in the local newspaper. Well, we're not going to read about it in the local newspaper because these are the crown jewels of the government and they really don't advertise that. Number three, don't believe anything until it's officially denied. And the last one here, there are not now, nor ever have been any extraterrestrial visitors or equipment on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And that's their press release from 1980. So what we're going to try to do here is we're going to try to make the case that they do have this evidence. And let's continue. I want to introduce Leonard Stringfield. He was the original crash retrieval expert. He coined the term UFO crash retrievals. Here's a couple of background data points here. We'll rip through these really quick. He was born in 1920, grew up in Cincinnati. By the time he graduated from high school in 1939, he had already memorized the entire dictionary. He joined the military as soon as he heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. After the war, he was employed by a chemical company in Ohio and retired after 30 years. He wrote two books, one in 57 and one in 1977 called The UFO Siege. And this is important here. His lecture on UFO crash retrievals at the 1978 MUFON Symposium in Dayton, Ohio, caused an international sensation. That's because the term UFO crash retrieval was a new concept back then. And since he presented this paper, but didn't reveal the names of the identities of the witnesses, that's what caused this sensation, really. He passed away December 18th, 1994. Newspaper clipping here. This is Cincinnati Enquirer, July 19th, 1993. And this is Leonard here. What I've collected has staggering implications for mankind. This would be the biggest thing since Christ, really. Author continues quest for truth about UFOs. And then everything that we'll be talking about here briefly comes from this book, UFO Crash Retrievals, Leonard Stringfield, 1978 to 1994. These are the status reports that he published, and everything, all the references, all the details regarding, without the names of the witnesses, though, is actually from this book. So now what I want to do is take you to Lunken Airport. This is in Cincinnati, Ohio. This is the location of the 3-ring binders. And I'm going to take you inside this facility. Now we're going into the storage area. Here you can see the file cabinets of where I got the information. I've laid a couple of these binders out here. And these binders are the day-to-day dictation notes of Leonard's office worker that helped him compile all this information. And these are what these 65 3-ring binders look like. And these were all the first-hand accounts of military witnesses who had interactions and dealings with bodies, craft, debris, shipping things to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Very good material.
Is that like the 50,000 cases?
No,
how many of those cases is here?
Yeah, that's from the QFOS archives back in 2457 West Peterson Avenue. That's the UFO cases with illustrations. Over here, what we're dealing with are the UFO crash retrievals. So within the crash retrieval 65 3-ring binders that I was able to look through, I counted 119 crash retrieval cases. And what I'm kind of showing here is if you went to a Vegas casino and you went to a roulette wheel and it had 121 slots on it and you bet 119, you're going to win every time. All you need is one of these cases to be real, and then the case for non-existence of crash retrievals completely falls apart. All we need is one, so the odds are on our favor, really. Also want to mention Rudy Gardea is the artist I'm working with. He's the one who did the drawings that we'll be looking at here. And just want to kind of go into some of these cases. Here's a typical case. Now, what you'd get is you'd get some detailed background information and some very minimal, you could call it technical information about this, and it's our job to make this case come alive. So this was a crash retrieval, 1942, at an Army base north of Georgia. So we're talking long before Roswell here. The source on this is UFO Crash Retrievals by Leonard Stringfield, page 319. This craft was 15 feet wide, 10 feet high. As it came down on this military facility, it hit the side of a building and breached a hole in the side of the craft. And so there were, talk about the levels here, 3 levels. On the upper level, there was what looked like, you could say, a control panel with buttons and switches and dials and levers. Second level had 4 bar stools that were sitting behind a wraparound window that you see here. And then Rudy's done kind of a detailed view. And then on the lower level, there was a hatchway entry. So next thing to point out is that at least 4 crew members were taken alive. They were 5 feet tall. They had oversized head, oversized eyes, minute nose, slit for a mouth, kind of milky white skin, and emaciated long arms that went down past the knees. So that's kind of a breakdown of this case. And again, we're long before Roswell here. Next one, Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. This is 1946. This is page 59. And this was a private who worked in records management at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. But in 1946, it was still known as Wright Field. So this private has to deliver a message inside a hangar. And coincidentally, he had a friend who was an NP there. So this friend said, hey, I got something I want to show you. So he walked him back to the back corner of the hangar. And the reference for this is Space, the Final Frontier, Secrets NASA Doesn't Want You to Know by Clark McClellan. That's where this particular case came from. And this is what they saw. This was a dish-shaped craft. It was 15 feet across, 8 feet high. It had a row of rectangular-shaped windows wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft. It came from Arkansas on a railroad freight car and then was shipped to Dayton, Ohio. This is my AutoCAD drawing that shows you what it looked like. So there were no rivets, there were no welds, there were no seams, there were no control panels, no seats. It had a 3-foot diameter central column that went from the bottom of the craft all the way to the top. And then if you look at this red dot here on this window, that is the attempted point of entry. And what they were doing is they were using a diamond tip drill bit to breach not only the hull of the craft, but the windows itself. And they failed. They failed. And I've got about 6 cases now of these UFO crash retrievals where they're using diamond tip drill bits, they're using acetylene torches, and they're using lasers to try to get into these craft. And here's a full color rendering by my friend Joseph Ray. Kind of give you a real good look at what this thing looks like inside. And then we peeled back the skin on the upper right detail that shows you this central column here. This thing was devoid of any seats at all, and they couldn't get inside. Here's the first color rendering that I put together. And here's the drawing by Rudy. And he said that according to the witness report, there was a tarp off to the right of the craft, and then there was an electric drill with diamond tip drill bits. And I just think that's so interesting, is our government was desperate to get inside these craft. Here's what the full color rendering looks like. So this is 1946. Even now, we are still before Roswell, and they already have at least 2 crash retrievals.
Wow.
Let's go to the next one. Here.
Once in a while, there's a weird sound thing. I don't know, like something just to be aware of. If something's scraping or something against the mic, I can cut it out afterwards. No worries.
Page 242, 243. This is Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946. And this is interesting. I don't know the exact hangar complex that this took place, but this is hangar number 4. And I believe it could have been this last one. This is Bay E here. I'm not sure, but it's possible. And this has to do with a 6-year-old boy. His father brought him to the base at the time, and he was getting a soda from a janitor. And as soon as this janitor handed this 6-year-old boy this soda, now they were in a cafeteria that was connected by a doorway to this hangar. Somebody came from the inside of the hangar, opened up the doorway, and this young boy looked inside, and what he saw was really amazing. Here's kind of the rough sketch that shows you what it looked like here. And then here he is peering inside the hangar, and we'll do a detailed view to give you a good idea of what it looked like. Here's the layout of what this scene looked like. And then here's our final rendering here. So he saw inside this hangar a 20-foot diameter dish-shaped craft that had tripod landing gear legs. There was one military Jeep there. There were two 18-wheeler tractor-trailer lowboys that had strange debris that was covered by a tarp. And then there were at least 3 bodies on the floor. They were 3.5 to 4 feet tall. They had elongated arms, oversized head, oversized eyes. And he saw this. He saw all this. And this is something that was imprinted in his mind for decades later. And eventually he got in contact with one of Leonard's assistants and brought the story out. So we have his testimony. And again, this is still before Roswell. Next one. This is in the Indian Reservation west of Globe, Arizona. This is January 1947. We're still before Roswell. And this took place west of Globe and east of the Superstition Mountains. So this is the kind of the pin location of where this actually took place. And this was a witness who served in the U.S. Navy during World War II. This is page 93, case A10. And what they were doing is there were 2 people in a Jeep. They were kind of looking from land that they wanted to build on. And they came across this 30-foot diameter dish-shaped craft about, I would say, 300 feet prior to. They were challenged by 2 MPs that questioned them, why are they there? And what they saw was a dome on the top. This thing was 30 feet in diameter, 18 feet high. It had 2 rings wrapped around the outer circumference, and then those rings kind of were what looked like they were between windows that wrapped around here. So from our witnesses here, they're telling us that the United States government has in possession these dish-shaped craft. Now, you would think by now, after all these years, they would figure out the propulsion system of these vehicles and then integrated that into our craft. That appears to be what they may have done. Next one, White Sands Missile Range. This is July 4th, 1947. The page number is 196. So if you want to look at that book, if anyone wants to get that book, it is available on Amazon. You can just follow along with this here. So this is White Sands Missile Range, and it's the upper part, what we want to focus in on here. So what came down was a craft that measured between 100 to 150 feet in diameter. This particular craft was excruciatingly well lit. They had all these light-all-seeing generators lighting this up at night. And then I also want to mention that they had people climbing on the rim of this craft, investigating it. And they also had military personnel all around the outer circumference of this taking pictures, but not only pictures, they were also taking motion picture film reels as well. So not only do they have, according to these witnesses, the bodies, the debris, the craft, but they've also got the 8x10 glossy black and white photographs, and they've also got the motion picture film reels. So when we hear these political members in these hearings and in these different meetings up in Washington, D.C., claiming that we don't have any evidence to support the existence of these, either they're lying or they're not been briefed in on these programs. Probably number 2, because they don't have a high enough security clearance. Next one.
Just 1 second. We have 132 people here. I'd like to welcome all our new viewers. I'm with Michael Schratt. He has done an amazing amount of research into crash retrievals. Very interesting. So 119 cases of crash retrievals. Again, only one of these need to be true. And then that's it. So yeah, thanks for being here. Smash that like button and subscribe if you guys are enjoying this. Thanks, Michael. It's awesome.
Okay. So this is 1947. This was seen at a warehouse at Berkeley. The source is page 197. So this particular white lab coat technician, he was at the right place at the right time when this 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy backed into the warehouse at Berkeley. And what he saw was amazing. This is what it looked like. It was about 30 feet across, 15 feet high. This was an egg-shaped craft that had a hull breach on the side of it. So picture an egg with the side of it cracked, showing you the interior yolk. And he said that there was a 3-foot diameter sphere in the central core of this craft. Now, this could be the primary UFO itself, or this could have been the propulsion system of something much larger. I don't know. Who knows? But it was very interesting. He said that there was a composite panel, a fiberglass, what looked like a composite panel separating one side of the egg-shaped propulsion system from the central core. And then there was another composite panel that wrapped around the outer circumference of this 3-foot diameter sphere. Off to the right on the bottom, there was what looks like an implosion in the craft and a hull breach on the interior, pushing out the material. And there was like shrapnel and debris, and you could call it metallic fragments laying on the ground. He did see those fragments. But again, we've got these craft, we've got these bodies. We do have the physical evidence. Now, this is what it's going to take. This kind of evidence put together and then forwarded to the scientific community as a united coalition. That's what it's going to take to move this field forward. All right, let's talk about the next one here. Carrot patch.
Oh, sorry, Michael.
Yeah.
1 sec. So seeing in the chat, good questions coming up.
Yeah.
And I hear it a lot, actually, is if these craft can fly from another dimension or another galaxy, how can they crash? How do they just crash?
I totally agree with you. I totally agree. It's a very good question. And the best way to answer that is in some of these cases, not all, but in some of these cases. Now, this is according to Harry Drew. This is 1953 during the Kingman soft landing. We had a craft come through a high-powered radar range. And this was so high-powered that when these craft flew through this range, birds that also flew through this range just dropped dead immediately. So in this case, in 53, one of these craft came through this range, and the high-powered radar interacted with their navigational equipment, and for some reason, it caused them to become disabled, and they came to the ground. So as far as specific details, who knows why? But at least in this case, in 53, that was the reason why there. And maybe these things have lightning strikes. Maybe they have other things that we don't know about that is interacting with their navigation system. But for whatever reason, they are coming down. They absolutely are coming down.
Well, and the other thing is it could be historic. If you mention it doesn't have to be right at the time.
Exactly.
Like if you have knowledge that there are actual other alien civilizations, and they've been here and they've crashed, which is, a lot of leaps for many people, then it seems like you would have a huge advantage in going and finding these craft in archaeological sites or like war-torn countries. Look at Afghanistan, how many ancient sites are there. So you have these areas where maybe you could just be dug up. So we're thinking in such short time frame, how can there be this many crash retrievals in 119 years? But maybe it's over, 100 million years is the idea.
That's a very good point. Some of these could be archaeological finds. I totally agree with you. And that's something that we should consider. So this particular retrieval, this is July, August, 1947. This was seen by two 19-year-old witnesses. It had come down the night before. They didn't know about this. And when they went to work at the Carrot Patch the next morning in Salinas, California, they saw it there. It was the foreman that alerted these two workers to this retrieval. And what they saw, here's a sketch from the report: a 9-foot diameter craft, 4 feet tall. It had a double row of windows that were rectangular that wrapped around the outer circumference, kind of a flat top. And here's the map that shows you where this thing came down. So you've got Salinas kind of on the upper midsection of this map. And if you go down south on 101, you'll see this is where the thing came down. And here's my original AutoCAD drawing that shows you the dimensions here. Again, 9 feet by 4, not a real large craft. Here is the first attempt at doing a full color rendering of what this craft looked like. And then here's Rudy's finalized drawing. So within about 5 minutes of these two 19-year-old boys getting on site, the military got on site. So they got on site immediately. There was at least one Jeep. There was a troop transport connected by a large trailer, and they witnessed from a distance the military putting this craft onto the trailer and then shipping this out. So they got a real good look at this from no more than an 1/8 mile away. They were very close to this entire operation. And then this is the final rendering by my friend Joel Payne. He finished it up really recently. So what I've been trying to do is take these ancient reports of crash retrievals with these, rough sketches and pencil interpretations of what these look like, and then the text detail that we've got, and then try to make these cases come alive through the use of illustrations. That's really the goal here. Next one, C-119 flying boxcar, Sierra Madre, Mexico, prior to 1941. So I'm 51. I'm thinking 1948 time frame. This is page 32. And this has to do with a highway construction worker. This craft came down. The United States government asked for his assistance, actually. And this is a 9-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. There were at least 2 bodies recovered. And we know the diameter of the craft, and that's gauged by the aft cargo bay of the C-119 flying boxcar, which is 9 feet, 10 inches wide. So we know that the craft can't be any larger than that. So we're looking at something about 9 feet, 6 inches wide, which gives you 2 inches of clearance on either side. So that can be the absolute maximum diameter of this craft that was recovered. And here is the drawing that shows you what the retrieval operation may have looked like. This is 1948 in Mexico around the Sierra Madre mountain range. And then this is our final full color rendering by Joseph Wright. It just kind of takes you to the scene, and we'll do a blow up here so that you can see them loading this in here. So now we've got at least 6 crash retrievals that they have in their possession. Next one, Naval Air Station, Sunnyvale, California. This was a radar operator who kind of got through a doorway, and he saw something very interesting within this hangar, which you can still go in today. This hangar still exists today. This is case B5, page 57. So you've got this radar operator. He kind of goes through this door. He gets access momentarily to the interior of this hangar, and this is what he sees inside. A large 80 to 100-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It had a row of windows wrapped around the lower portion of the dome, and he was challenged by this guard and ordered out of there immediately and told to forget what he saw. And so I just think it's interesting. This guy was at the right place at the right time, and this happens. This happens. There are cases where people see these craft, and it just imprints this onto their mind here. Next case, this is a classified materials library at an unknown U.S. Air Force base. This is from a former military officer, page 212, page 213. So you've got this officer. He's at this library. He is kind of passing time in this library because he had the correct security clearance. So he opens up this drawer, and he sees a file with a particular name on it, and it's referring to UFO crash retrievals. And what I want to do now is I want to take you inside this file cabinet and show you what he saw. He saw photographs and reports of UFO crash retrievals, and there was a file there that had the subheading Farmington, New Mexico, and this is prior to 1950. This was 36 feet in diameter. There was a small dome on the top. There was portholes wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft, and there were bodies recovered. There was a small quarter-size hole that allowed some type of access to the bottom of the craft. They activated some type of a hatchway on the bottom of the craft, and this is prior to 1950. A couple of key points here. Military officer had the correct security clearance, which gave him access to a classified materials library. The report talked about he was made references to crashes and that bodies were recovered. In addition, diamond tip drill bits and acetylene torches were used to gain access to the interior, reference 1946 crash seen at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and also one that was guarded in December 1963. And then 4, eventually technicians were able to gain access to the interior of the craft by way of a small entry hatch. The report said, referring to the door, that it was almost as if the material of the craft liquefied and then solidified again. So point being is you wouldn't even know that there was an entryway hatch there until you activated something, and then this doorway or entryway hatchway, it appeared. But prior to, it was completely seamless. This I've heard multiple times. Now, when you talk about Farmington and you talk about something that happened prior to 1950, we have got reference material and dozens of newspaper clippings around the same time frame of a massive quote-unquote armada of flying saucers that flew over Farmington. This is just one newspaper clipping from literally dozens of them. Now, this is Albuquerque Journal, March 18th, 1950. Hundreds at Farmington report large force of flying saucers. There were about 500 of these things that flew over. One of them was red in color. He was the quote-unquote leader of the others. And these things were making 90-degree right angle turns. They could go backwards. They made very erratic maneuvers. And this is all in 1950 timeframe. We'll do a couple more here. Shoot saucers down. Jet pilots so ordered in 24-hour air alert. So the point here is, in the early 1950s, the U.S. Air Force had a standing order to shoot these saucers down. So my question is, if there's nothing to flying saucers, if there's, according to Project Blue Book, there was no threat, there was nothing to flying saucers. A lot of these things were misinterpretations of astronomical bodies. They were balloons, unidentified aircraft. There was nothing to this. Why are they ordering our pilots to shoot these things down if there's nothing to it? Here's a couple of other basically front page headings here. On the saucer trail, pilots told shoot them down. Jets keeping 24-hour alert for saucers. Jets on 24-hour alert to shoot down saucers. And so these are the craft that they were used for these intercepts, F-94 Starfire. And if you look at the nose section of the Starfire, it has these flaps or doors that open up, showing you these rockets. And this is an attempted entry or intercept of these craft. And here is our rendering of what one of these intercepts may have looked like. And this is all early 1950s over Washington, D.C., other areas around the country. They had a standing order to shoot these things down. Now, before you think that this might be crazy, I want to give you this. This was a letter to Leonard Stringfield from a woman named Mildred Bissell. This is October 2nd, 1979. Here's what she said. I heard you speak at the MUFON Symposium in Dayton last year, and I'm interested in your research on retrievals of the third kind. I gave a talk at a local library last week, and in the discussion period following, a fellow told me that when he was a gunner in the Air Force, he had emptied his guns on a UFO and had taken pictures with his gun camera that clearly showed the shells exploding against the side of the craft. He said the camera was taken off the wing of his plane when it landed, and the pictures developed. At 2 a.m., a couple of military policemen came and got him out of bed and took him to the base auditorium. They ran the 17 seconds of movie of the UFO over and over and questioned him and 2 other crew members until about 10 a.m. He was warned never to tell anyone what had happened. He said he had a wife and family, a good job, and a lot to lose. He seemed afraid of the CIA and wouldn't even give me his name. So here's a very good example of this gentleman in the Air Force where he unloaded his entire gun on this thing. It hit the side of the craft, and they got it all on motion picture film reel. There has got to be hundreds, maybe thousands of similar examples of this that are being kept under wraps at probably an underground vault at the Pentagon. I think we've got time for one more here. This is the Pentagon, 1952. This was at a quote-unquote off-limits room at an underground basement. This is Crash Retrievals, page 152, case 1. This was an office worker who was working at the Pentagon. Somehow she got access to an underground basement area. She kind of went through this doorway into this off-limit room, and she kind of looks off to the right. It was a very dark, dingy room. There were some boxes there. She kind of does a 180 turn, and what does she end up seeing? She sees a quote unquote pickled alien in a jar, and she's completely shocked. 5 seconds later, she feels this hand on her shoulder and her arm, and it was an MP telling her to get out of there immediately, and she had to sign papers that she wouldn't talk about this. But years later, she did speak to Chris Coffey, who was an associate of Leonard Stringfield, and she was able to talk about the account. So really, I just wanted to go over a couple of these crash retrieval cases. The goal here is to make these cases come alive and preserve an important part of our national history. And a lot of these cases, they do need to come forward. And I want to thank you again for your attention.
Yeah. Oh, amazing briefing, Michael. Thank you so much, man.
Yep.
That the Starfire one, if you go back to that drawing real fast. Yeah, I did a video on that actually out of the UK. Down in the southeast. They had the same thing. He was ordered to actually go and launch on a UFO. And right when he was going to actually, when he had a weapon solution, he had locked it up on the radar. Everything was good. Yeah. Right when the rockets were going to fire, the thing just took off, or he lost the radar lock excessively. So
that sounds right. That sounds right.
Yep. And afterwards, he met with a spook, and the guy said, "Let me give you this." And the guy basically said, don't, the same thing you just briefed. Don't speak of this ever again. You'll get in huge trouble and taken off flying status and everything. Just threaten them.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. So that's another good example. So it's not uncommon. So we've got multiple reference to this, that this actually did happen.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Let's see. Do we have any questions from the audience? What's your favorite crash retrieval, I guess, out of all of these? If you had to pick,
I like the 46 case with the young boy, because he saw it and it made such an impression on him that he never forgot it. And he saw everything. He saw the craft, he saw the bodies, he saw the retrieval operation. He was a firsthand witness, and it just stayed with him for his entire life. So I do like that case.
And do you think, it's been over 80 years. Do you think we're actually going to get any information from the government? Is it too late? Is it like there's too many misdeeds done, or they hid all the information? Like you said, 50% of the data is in top secret vaults.
It's going to take an act of God to get this out. But we do have a new avenue now. We have a mechanism. There's a new bill, NDAA bill, that is going to provide a vehicle or a mechanism for these firsthand witnesses to come forward now. And so they're not going to be prosecuted. They won't go to jail for releasing this information. So what we're looking at now, this time frame we're living in right now, is our best chance for getting disclosure. Absolutely.
Excellent. And are you optimistic that, well, obviously, yeah, if you think this is our best chance, what do you think of 2023? Have you heard anything in particular about the whistleblower protections? Is this actually going to work? What do you think?
Yeah, it's already been passed. It passed 2 days prior to Christmas of last year. So it's already a done deal. So we're looking for more whistleblowers to come forward now. So yes, we're positioned in a very good avenue now to move this forward.
All right. Well, excellent. Thank you so much for being here, Michael. That was an amazing briefing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks again. And all the links will be in the descriptions. And I'll take you out here.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, excellent. Amazing stuff there. 119 crash retrievals going through. I saw some mentions of this would be beautiful in a book. And I think, so I posted that to Michael. I think that's a great idea. Just so much interesting stuff. Almost seems like there's so much data that if it's true, they can't release it now. That, you've killed so many people. You can't just go and turn yourself in. You have too many bodies buried in the backyard. But again, we need some hardcore evidence, and that would come from our own crash retrievals. So UAP Society, the idea is to be decentralized, to just share information. So happy to have Michael Schratt on here, and happy to have other researchers to try and come up with places to get our own crash retrievals. I'll talk with Gary Nolan on Monday, And I really want to focus on how we identify these materials. You know, if we have basically an orb, UAP Society, one of our members supposedly has an orb, but, you know, it's a 40-pound, you know, 10-inch across exactly steel ball. So is that an orb? You know, how do you prove it that it's alien origin? So it'd be great to chat with him about that. All right. Thanks everyone for being here. Again, check out that video tonight. So we'll be premiering on both of these channels. So check it out and have a great day. See ya.